Hey, what's up guys? This is fRod, the head coach of the T1 Valorant team. Today we're going to talk about patch 1.09, kind of go into some little notes, see what's going on, see how things may affect the game a little bit. Let's go right into it. So in this patch, the main agents that were tinkered with a little bit were Omen, Jett, Viper, Reyna, and Brim. Some of the agents, like for example, Brim, there wasn't really that big of an update. You know, his stim beacon got a 5% increase, so you know, maybe in his case, you know, his stim beacon might be a little bit more effective, but I don't necessarily think that it's going to really impact it too much, because you know, there might be other things that would be considered making him a stronger agent, like say maybe like reducing the sound of when he takes out his smokes and things like that. So I don't necessarily think a 5% increase is too much, or like, you know, anything like really game breaking or anything. And then the next one would be Reyna, who, you know, her fire rate got reduced by 10% when she's in Empress form. To me, I think that's, you know, not necessarily that big of a nerf, because at the end of the day, sometimes when you were firing while you were in Empress, it was kind of hard to control the recoil and some of like the patterns, like multi-fragging and whatnot, especially like spraying the whole clip and whatnot. So I think if anything, the reduction in fire rate might actually help, you know, some players get like more balanced kills, and you know, if anything, it might be just like just some sort of you know, quality of life adjustment for her. The next one will be Viper, which I think something for her is pretty important, that the you now start with 100 fuel rather than 50, because you know, in certain cases when the blue wall is very close in some moments and someone could just like rush and get out there very fast, having the 50 extra fuel at the beginning would allow for the smokes to kind of stay up a little bit longer. So that does have, you know, quite a bit of benefit. And then when it comes to snake bite, the fact that the debuff stays for, you know, a couple seconds after, now it lingers for 2 seconds, I think that's, you know, a little bit more important for her, because now when you can just dump that under someone's feet and they can't just like run out of it and, you know, have no effects from that. So if anything, I think it might help for certain rounds that might, you know, dominate like pistol rounds, or even when you have like SMG on low buys. But I think this is gonna make, you know, Viper a little bit more viable here and there, you know, when you start seeing some of these little buffs. And it's pretty evident that they're making significant changes to Viper every single patch, trying to make sure that she is being played and that her abilities are, you know, good and useful and whatnot. When it comes to the Viper's Pit, I think the movement speed while casting is really important, because before, you know, she often, in times if you want to cast it like an open area, you're a little bit too exposed, or you cannot hide behind like say a wall or a box like right after doing it. So I think that does have quite a bit of impact in the moments that you do get caught. The fact that your weapon appears faster now is also quite a bit of a buff. Okay, so when it comes to Omen, it basically just updated the projectile, so it just represents its hitbox more accurately, especially when it's traveling. I think it just makes it more visible and more clear for everyone. I think it's just like a neutral change. If anything, it, you know, helps for you to dodge it a little bit in moments that you thought it was just going to cover the whole entirety. Now you can kind of see exactly where it's going to be and what it's going to do, which I think is probably more of an accurate representation of, you know, what it should be doing. And the agent that did see the biggest changes was Jett, but for the most part it was just on the ultimate, especially on the burst fire mode. So basically the increase from 0.33 to 0.45 seconds for consecutive kills, I don't really think it's that big of a change. I mean, it's really 0.12 seconds. It's really not that much. In essence, if you can, you know, get someone, hide and peek again, I don't think that 0.12 seconds is really that big of a change. But I understand where they're trying to go at it, because if anything, you can spam that right click, especially when you get quite a bit of kills with it consecutively. Now the other one, where it comes to having damage drop off, I think that's very good, because the damage drop off now begins at 12 meters and drops off steadily. So I think that this is something that is good, because in those moments that someone could just like right click from like very far away, it did seem kind of strange that it would just, you know, decimate someone from quite a bit of distance. And you know, I do play Jett every now and then, you know, I never get any of those kills like that. So, and now the other important part is the headshot multiplier on burst fire, because now if you right click and you hit them on the head and they have over 100 health, they won't die from one knife to the head. So if anything, you have to hit one knife and one body shot, or 2 headshots. But either way, you do have to you know, you can't, it's not just about getting one knife in the head now, especially with the right click. The left click did not see any changes, so if anything, it makes it more viable to continue trying to do that. But you know, it still seems like it's a little bit random sometimes to get like that one knife in the head at range. But you know, if you can, you know, time it slowly and accurately, you can get that. If anything, some of these nerfs did affect the actual right click, and that's pretty much it. When it comes to the weapon adjustments, all the weapons, what they did do is change the jumping land inaccuracy. So basically, that first bullet when you land on any weapon is not going to be 100% accurate. The point that I was trying to make with the op on this, for example, is I don't necessarily think that it's going to affect the jumping op too much, because if the jumping, landing, and accuracy is only increased by 0.02 seconds, I don't necessarily think that it's going to affect it too much. And the reasoning why is because, you know, for example, if you jump op somewhere and your crosshair is exactly where your opponent is at, yes, you have to wait that timer and then you click, because that moment that you land and you click, it will be inaccurate. But the times that you land and your crosshair is not aimed exactly where the opponent is, whatever amount of time it takes for you to land, realize where you're at, and adjust your crosshair to kill your opponent, it will be enough time where the inaccuracy won't really affect it that much. So in my opinion, I don't really think it's going to really affect it that much, because more often than not, you will have to adjust your crosshair slightly when you do make those jumping shots. So if anything, it's just going to make you, have to focus it more, and to maybe, not try and do it as much. But I still think in certain moments that you can kind of get it off. But I think that the one thing that does actually change a little bit more is the scope movement speed, because now you're 4% slower, from 76% to 72% scope speed. So if anything, you do, take certain corners and take certain fights a little bit slower now because of that. The actual price being increased from 4,500 to 5,000, I think is a really good balance, because for me, I think the op should definitely be one of those guns that is, very expensive. It does impact the economy of the player as well as the team if it's, kind of played in some sort of, casual or loose, or silly way of using it. So I think if anything, it just requires you to have a lot more discipline with the economy. And if anything, on pistol rounds, if certain players want to make sure that they have an op on third round, they're gonna have to either save, or they're gonna have to make sure that they get a whole bunch of kills first and second round to be able to, afford that weapon on the third round. So a good change, and something that tweak a little bit more, maybe go up a little bit more in price, but we'll end up seeing how that goes. And then so it says the adjusted weapon dead zone becoming inaccurate at 30% movement speed to 15. I mean, basically you're becoming inaccurate sooner, and you're accurate longer when you're stopping. So if anything, it's gonna allow you to try and be more stationary with it. But honestly, I think that, in certain moments that you can get your quick peeks and your certain shots out no matter what. I think if anything, it's just all about being more precise with it and not being caught in a lot of open spaces. Because I guess if you're Jet, because if you're Jet, then you can just kind of dash away and you can abuse those off angles. But if anything, you have to be a little bit more patient and more on the defensive side with the op now. The actual firing rate reduced from 0.75 to 0.6 actually does help the op in the sense that get one kill and then repeat again as fast. You do have to wait a little bit longer, and even if it's not too much more, it does add up when you try and multi-frag. And in certain moments that you can get 3 or 4 kills, maybe you might only be able to get 2 before you're overwhelmed. So I think if anything, a lot of these updates are forcing oppers to be more aware of their surroundings, and have to hit their shot, because if they don't, they're going to be getting in these situations that they're not going to be able to get away from, and they're not going to be able to shoot as fast with it as well. And then so the instant equip time adjusted from 0.3 to 0.5, I think is a very good updated patch as well, because what happens is that when you could just like tap the bomb and you could just like shoot right after very fast, or you can get really aggressive with the op on Phoenix, or you could even drop your clouds as Jet and shoot really fast. So I think that these are all like well balanced changes that are very necessary on a rifle or on a weapon that was pretty much overtaking the game in a lot of ways, and wasn't necessarily even costing that much money, for example, and very easy to get and very easy to purchase as well. And then the leg shot damage being decreased from 127 to 120, I don't necessarily think that has like that great of an impact, but I guess in certain moments you do have to leg shot somebody and they do have half armor, you won't be able to get the kill. So in those cases, that would probably be the only situation, in my opinion, that it really impacts it too much. Other than that, if you do get the leg shot before and they had full armor, you still get the kill. So now, if anything, it's more true to what the weapon should be, that a leg shot is a leg shot, and it shouldn't really kill someone. I guess in this case, if you have no armor at all, then it'll do the trick. But I think that these are all, like I said before, like well balanced changes that are necessary on a weapon that was very dominant and I guess too easy to use in a lot of people's hands. Alright, so when it comes to jumping off, what I was trying to explain, that basically if your crosshair is going to be exactly where someone is, you can get your shot off as long as you wait that time. But if you shoot the moment that you land, the bullet's it's going to be inaccurate just like that. So whereas before you could get it off right, very, very fast, now you have to wait that time. But the reason why I don't necessarily think it's that big of a change is because more often than not, you're going to jump peek someone, your crosshair is not going to be on the target. By the time that you do jump and land and realize where your crosshair is, flip, shoot, it's going to be the exact time to basically have the bullet be accurate again. So I don't necessarily think it's going to be that big of a change. Okay, so when it comes to the actual firing rate as well, now at the very end right there, it's going to take a little bit longer to shoot. And the reason why I think this is very important is because now you're not going to be able to get as many kills, and if you do miss one shot, it's more often that you're not going to be able to, get all the kills or get as easy as you were before. So I think to me that's very, very big, because it does slow down the way the actual weapon shoots. Now, the one thing that I will say is that it does make quick switching a little bit more viable in the sense that you can shoot, take your knife out, and run away. Because if before, you can just keep your scope, drop out, and keep shooting, and keep getting accurate. Whereas now, it'll take a little bit more time. So, maybe now it brings out the quick switching a little bit, and it forces you to have to be faster, so you can, be quicker with the actual movement speed behind some walls and while you're jiggling. But, I do think that does affect a little bit, because the other portion of it is that you do have 4% slower movement speed while you're scoped. So in essence, if you scoped, or if you shoot and you take out your gun, you will get your speed increase back up, and that little speed boost will allow you to get behind the wall very, very fast. So if anything, I think that these are all just like very well balanced changes, because even for example when you drop the smoke out, you have to wait more time. As Jet, it's the same mechanic as if you're flashing with Phoenix or even defusing the spike. Being able to shoot so fast was not a good thing. So if anything, some of these tweaks and some of these updates are going to be looked at and see where they kind of stand. And if anything, some of these timers and some of these adjustments have to be increased a little bit. But I think that all these updates are kind of headed in the right direction to balance this weapon out. That's it for today's patch notes, going over 1.09. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that, and if you want to see the previous patch notes, you can go ahead and check the YouTube channel and go ahead and stay tuned for a little bit more of the next patch notes when they come out. See ya.